If it's been a while since you played New World, you're probably a little bit lost coming back to all the changes. Hi, my name's Kongnificent, and today we're going to be talking about how to get ready for the Brimstone Sands expansion coming on the 18th of October. With it literally being a little more than a week away, I'm sure you're just as pumped as I am to get into it. In this guide, I'm going to be covering what you should be doing to prepare for the expansion and how to level your gear score, and what mats you should be farming to get ahead the first week it drops. So without further ado, let's get it! Alright, so starting off, I'm going to be explaining this like it's been months since you've played. You're level 60, but your gear score is under 600. As a level 60, your goal is to be as close to gear score 625 as close as possible. Thankfully, you'll have a variety of ways to level your gear and bump up your gear score over the next couple of weeks. Your first order of business is going to be to fast travel to Reekwater or Ebonscale Reach. Here, you'll find gypsum kilns, which will literally be your best friend over the next 2 weeks. You'll be able to turn the gypsums that you can earn daily into gypsum orbs to level up your expertise of gear. So here's how that works. Once your gypsums are turned into orbs, you can create a gypsum cast, which gives you a piece of gear that expertise bump, usually ranging from 1 to 4 points. You can buy 1 gypsum cast for each piece of gear that you have. Once purchased, it is then put on a 24-hour cooldown before you can buy another one. For example, if you chose to buy a bow cast, then you won't be able to buy another until the next day. Now you might be asking, that's great, but how do I get gypsum to create orbs? I'm glad you asked. So there's a variety of ways to get different colored gypsums. Each color requires a different amount of gypsum to create a gypsum orb, and I'll break each one down like this. You get a ruby gypsum after completing a full outpost rush match. What you need to do is score at least 500 in the match to qualify for the ruby gypsum. You can earn up to 2 ruby gypsums a day by completing 2 outpost rush matches. You can get Obsidion Gypsum by killing named elites that are level 60 plus. You would need to get 3 Obsidion Gypsum to create a gypsum orb. Please note that it takes about 10 to 15 minutes before you can earn the next gypsum from a mob. You can earn Topaz Gypsums by killing mobs that are level 55 plus. You need to craft a Topaz Gypsum potion at the Arcana table to take advantage of this. Don't worry, you don't need to have your Arcana skill leveled for this. This is something you can do level 1. You would just need 5 of any of the bug motes that you come across. For example, Soulworm or Blight Moth, you would need 5 of those to craft 1 gypsum potion. In order to get Citrine Gypsum, you will need to queue for 3v3 arenas and win most likely to actually get the gypsum. The other thing that you can do is fight the arena bosses, which are located in Reekwater and Eden Grove. You can earn up to 2 Citrine Gypsums a day, and it only takes 1 to create a gypsum orb. Sapphire Gypsum is earned by completing either a Lazarus or Genesis dungeon run. All you have to do is kill the final boss on either dungeon, and you will get a 100% drop rate on the Sapphire Gypsum. Just note as well, you can only earn up to 2 a day as well and convert 1 to 1 for a gypsum orb. Amethyst Gypsum comes from level 60 plus major and minor breaches. It's a 50% drop from minor breaches and 100% drop from major breaches. You need 7 of the Amethyst Gypsums to craft a gypsum orb. Emerald Gypsum is dropped every time you hit a trade skill aptitude level notch. Basically, you have to have a max trading skill, whether it be in mining, harvesting, or logging, etc. It can take you anywhere up to 10 to 30 minutes to mine for this gypsum. Just depends on how far along you are on your aptitude for the trade skill. You will also most likely get this from a refining skill in smelting, weaving, just by farming daily for your mats. And lastly, you have diamond gypsum, which you can obtain just by farming literally anything in the world, and you get 3 stashes a day immediately. It takes 3 diamond gypsum to make 1 gypsum orb. And that's basically it for all the colored gypsum. So now that we know how to get each gypsum, let's discuss the most efficient way to get them all at once and how to increase your expertise. To start, while you're queuing for a Lazarus or Genesis dungeon, go to Reekwater or Eden Grove to see if you can pick up any quests from the faction rep. These give quite a large amount of tokens and will help you buy your gypsum orbs from the faction rep. You can buy 2 a day and they cost 7k faction tokens. These dungeons require you to have a gear score of 500 plus to enter. Pop a Topaz potion and farm the mobs in the level 55 plus zones while you're queuing for the dungeon. While in dungeon, you will get Topaz Gypsum for killing all the mobs. Lazarus or Genesis will be the best way to get expertise bumps as they drop pretty consistently from elite mobs and bosses. An experienced group can clear this dungeon in about 25 to 35 minutes. Tempest has the most drops but is recommended gear score 570. It also takes you about 45 minutes to an hour to complete this dungeon as it's a bigger dungeon than the first two. If it's your first time, prepare to be there even longer if you don't have carries with you. Be sure to grab the quest at the church by the Tempest entrance to get a cache for completing the Tempest run. Once you've completed your 2 daily dungeons for Sapphires, you can head into the Shattered Mountain area from Tempest to farm named elites for Obsidian Gypsum. While looking for the named elites, queue for PvP and get either your arena or OPR gypsums completed. If you're running around with a group in PvE, I highly suggest going around clearing corrupted breaches that are 60 plus, as it's not very easy to do by yourself, especially if you're not 600 gear score. If you plan to take the minor breaches by yourself, make sure you stock up on corruption potions for the dot damage and apply the corruption coatings to help you clear the mobs faster. By the time you are done completing all these tasks, you should have gotten your diamond and emerald gypsums just by skinning mobs or farming resources out in the new world. If you're really grinding for expertise bumps, I would highly suggest doing chest runs with a large group of people. Mines and Mirkgard are in Shattered Mountain. Typically on every server, Mines precedes Mirkgard and is almost always followed by Mirkgard, and players usually run from the ends of Mine to Mirkgard, so just keep that in mind when planning for this. Imperial Palace is in Ebonscale, and this is another area that you can go with a large group. Use infused corruption tinctures to make sure that you don't take too much damage from mobs or the ground. Sirens and Pools is in Reekwater. Malevolence is in Eden Grove. And for Malevolence, you might want to use Blight tinctures as you'll take a lot of damage being blighted. Mangled Heights is in Great Cleave, and you want to have corruption tinctures as well for this place. You can farm the elite chest drops from every area once every 24 hours. This will be a highly efficient way to increase expertise bumps under 585 gear score. The drops start to drop off above 585, and it's better to grind Genesis or Lazarus again for expertise bumps once you reach that gear score. The only downside is sometimes it's hard to find groups for these big chest runs, so you want to always check recruitment chat or faction chat to see if any groups are forming or to start your own. Side note, if you have dungeon orbs from way back when you needed them to enter a dungeon, you now have multiple caches in your storage that you need to go check. After a fairly recent update, they made it so that you no longer need those and you can farm up to 25 to 35 dungeons a week for gear and expertise. So I highly recommend checking out your storage to see if you have any random caches laying anywhere, as they will give you again another expertise bump and probably some pretty good gear. Honestly, the hardest part to all of this will definitely just be remembering how or where to get each colored gypsum, which is why I made this guide with chapters for you to go back and rewatch anytime you need specific information immediately. The last thing to talk about is what to do once you've hit gear score 600. Farming Umbral Shards will be your biggest priority, as this is how you will take your gear from 600 to 625. Gear score 600 is when you finally get legendary drops. To get a legendary drop, you have to be 600 expertise in that specific gear or weapon. If you are not, you will get a purple and an expertise bump until you reach 600. You can finally do your first sets of mutated, as it's recommended to be gear score 600 to 602 for the first mutation of each dungeon. You get better drops and Umbral Shards for mutated dungeons. The higher the mutated dungeon, the more shards you will get. The max level is 10, and these are timed runs that you have to complete in a timely manner and not wipe as a squad, and if you pass with a silver medal or better, you can then move on to the next mutated level. I will cover more about mutated orbs and how to complete higher level orbs at a later time. For now, just do your best to complete the first couple of mutations as often as possible to get better gear and Umbral Shards. Once you have a few Umbral Shards saved up, let's say 6k, I would put all of them into one piece to get it as close as 625 as possible so that you can farm Umbral Shards from that item. So let me explain. So I decided to max my bow first. I found out that when you have a maxed out bow, you actually get more Umbral Shards from that cast. So I was getting 400 Umbral Shards per max geared item versus about 100 to 150 for a newly 600 gear scored item. Once you get a few pieces max, you'll be able to get about 12 to 1600 shards easily just for farming your gypsum cast, and in turn will help you level your gear faster as each day you can spend more and more Umbral Shards for max gear. But remember, you won't get any Umbral Shards from Gypsum Cast until you reach 600 expertise for that specific piece. Now onto our final segment, which is preparing for Brimstone Sands. So you got your gear score up, you maxed a few refining skills and trading skills, and now it's time to gather materials. The first thing we're going to talk about is Heart Gem runes. Heart Gem runes are essentially an ultimate ability for your weapons. Once you've attained the item, you can equip it much like a weapon, open your inventory, drag it to the appropriate slot, and once you have it equipped, you can utilize it just like an ability. There's only one rune type for each minor and major rune category. However, there are a total of 15 runes in their legendary form, meaning there are 5 different types of runes and 3 categories for each rune. Each category in itself has its own perks. To get your first minor heart gem, you'll have to do dungeon runs and defeat specific bosses they drop from. For example, the Heart Gem Grasping Vines drops from Caretaker in Genesis. You'll also be able to use materia from the dungeon to craft it. If you are unlucky and cannot get the gem from the dungeon you need, 8,000 materia is what you'll need to craft it at a crafting table. Upgrade it to the Major Heart Gem. What you will need is the Minor Heart Rune Grasping Vines, which you get from Caretaker, 5 Runestone, 5 Gypsum Orbs, 5,000 Umbral Shards, 5 Corrupted Lodestone, and 3 Soul. The only thing that changes between other heart runes at this level is having the appropriate minor heart gem to craft the major heart gem, as is used as an artifact to upgrade. Once you have obtained the major version of the rune, you can then craft the legendary versions of the runes. There are 3 different versions of the legendary runes. This means you will need to obtain 3 minor and 3 major runes of each heart gem in order to craft all of them. For the legendary heart gem, for example, the Brutal Heart Rune of Grasping Vines, you need a Major Grasping Vine, 10 Runestone, 10 Gypsum Orb, 1,000 Thorny Vines, 5 Corrupted Lodestone, and 10 Sulfur. The variations take either Vials of Suspended Azoth or Rites of Adventure instead of the Corrupted Lodestone. This is one example of many, but the point is to know what we can do now to get upgraded heart gems as soon as possible. I would say the first priority is having max stone cutting to craft 10 runestone each day. If you can't or don't have the time, you can buy runestone off the market, but this could be pretty pricey as 1 runestone can be anywhere from 200 to 400 gold, depending on what server you're on. I'd imagine that the price of all legendary crafting mats such as Runic Leather, Phoenix Weave, etc. will all be much more expensive at the start of the expansion as well. The demand for new gear and perks to match the greatsword and appropriate heart gems will be likely. Second would be to hoard your Vials of Suspended Azoth. I know I'm guilty of selling these off in mass, but you'll need at least 50 depending on what heart gem you want to craft. Third would be saving your uncut pristine sapphires. You'll likely get a decent amount of these just by farming lodestone, orchicalium, and other high level mineral ores. Fourth is corrupted lodestone. Clear corruption portals and open caches to get as many corrupted fragments to craft the corrupted lodestone at the stone cutting table. Everything else should be exceptionally easy to get aside from Umbral Shards and Gypsum Orbs, which I'd imagine you'll be having to make tough choices on to upgrade gear or to save it for heart gem upgrades. No matter where you are, gear score wise, just know it's good to have you back, because I think this upcoming expansion is about to be amazing. Drop me a comment below and tell me what you'd like to see next. Is it farming guides, PvP builds, how to max a certain trade or refining skill? Let me know and I'll respond with a video or post as soon as I can. Be sure to leave a like and follow if you thought this video was helpful. I'll be live streaming weekdays and in the evenings if you want to pop in and chat. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you next time.